So, Franky finally got a major power upgrade that was almost as surprising at this point as it was honestly overdue, and it actually made me think about Franky's true potential in the story, and quite frankly, Oda might be just taking the first steps here towards another much more powerful final form of his that has been hinted at since Water 7. And also in today's video, since Oda now suddenly has started out handling power-ups to the Straw Hats that we've been waiting for what feels like basically an eternity, what might all the other Straw Hats potentially get as power-ups in the Elbaf arc? But let's start with the MVP of this chapter, Lilith, the second hottest Vegapunk, who finally asked a question that I've kind of been wondering for years, which is, why hasn't Franky actually used anything other than regular old cola to power his crazy powerful cyborg body? And interestingly enough, Lilith actually compliments Franky's work, saying that he built a pacifista level body, which kinda sucks because now that's gonna be something the power scalers bust out all the time, like Yonko Commander level and Whoop Slap tier. Whoop Slap tier pretty good though. Now this all started when Lilith whipped out a device called the Omni Drain Converter, put out the fire at the old library where all the books of Ohara are still at, and then turned all of that heat into a new and improved super heavy cola, which I kinda like to imagine probably tastes exactly like RC Cola, right? Now, this powers up Franky a lot, letting him bust out some brand new moves against some of the Dream Monsters. Now, as far as I can tell with my next level chemical knowledge that I retained from middle school, super heavy cola appears to be a reference to super heavy water, a very rare form of water, even rarer than just regular heavy water, which is a thing as well, but in this case, the hydrogen atoms in the water are actually replaced with a radioactive isotope called tritium, which, I don't know, to me seems to imply that Franky just went literally nuclear. I mean, the Mother Flame also seems to be a reference to nuclear power, of course, but if this is the case here, I do think that Franky's attacks are gonna get a whole lot more devastating than just the strong Dexter, which is already pretty crazy. Because now that he has this super heavy cola, I do think he's gonna take that Dexter right back to the laboratory and make it even stronger. So if Franky actually got a little bit of that Mother Flame in him right now, or might get that in the future, what could that mean for some potential power-ups that aren't in the middle of a battle with the Holy Knights, for example, in the time after this arc? Now, to me, by saying that Lilith is surprised that Franky doesn't use something that packs a bit more of a punch than regular cola, is there actually a world where Franky just gets his own little Mother Flame Vegapunk-style reactor inside of him? Or could he tap into the power of the original Forbidden Sun? I mean, we've speculated before together that Nika might have been a Lunarian and that the Forbidden Sun itself could have been derived from his Lunarian flame. And so if Luffy's actually able to tap into the full potential of his Nika fruit, of his sun powers, could this give Franky an insane power source to power both his robot body and some of his other crazy inventions that might still be happening? And this could even tie into the fact that Lilith compares his body to the Pacifista. I mean, what are the natural upgrades that Vegapunk created to the Pacifista? That's the Seraphim, of course, who also spark a Lunarian flame. Now, of course, Franky's own flames would be much cuter because turns out the Mother Flame is actually canonically pink, which I love, reminds me of the entire cherry blossom stuff that Dr. Hirolook was talking about, but Franky can basically follow in Vegapunk's footsteps and use the Mother Flame energy for some good stuff instead of, you know, using it to blow up innocent islands like some emus that I know, well, like poor Lulucia. But it's kind of far from the only option that I even see for Franky, you know, getting crazy strong by the end of the story. After all, Franky's hanging with the greatest scientist in the world right now, who's getting a brand new laboratory set up on Elbaf, a brand new lab made out of a very old lab from over at least 3,000 years ago, very much, you know, Naushka, ancient giant, crazy ancient lost technology style. You and me both know that there could be some absolutely insane revelations hidden inside this location that Vegapunk apparently didn't know about, and Franky could go one step further than a Vegapunk upgrade he could maybe even download some Great Kingdom data to unlock some even crazier knowledge and power too. I personally think that Franky has always been the character that Oda would go most sci-fi with, right? That just makes sense, and we kind of know that the Ancient Kingdom and whatever the first world was probably a lot closer to sci-fi than it was to, you know, good old fantasy. They might even find out more of the truth behind what the Great Kingdom itself was. You know, maybe it'll turn out that they actually did power a bunch of their technology just using leveled up cola. That would definitely be a joke that I could see Oda making easily. I hope you agree that that would just feel like something very Oda-like. And it would also answer a question that's been burning in my mind for many years. Is Joy Boy a Coke or a Pepsi person? Now, if the Straw Hats have some time to kill on the island after they kick Emu and the Holy Knights back to Marijua, presumably, everything could go down the drain for all that we know, but presumably, let's assume they actually win here and, you know, like buy themselves some time, I could see Franky getting some other new upgrades on top of all that. And again, it's honestly more than overdue. I was kind of losing my mind that he didn't get anything on Egghead Island, literally future cyborg Vegapunk Island. That'd be kind of like if Usopp didn't get a power-up on Elbaf. Right? So, Elbaf is the land of giants, in case you didn't realize. So what better place for Franky to build that giant robot of his, ours, and Luffy's, Chopper's, and Usopp's dream. Now don't get me wrong, Franky Shogun is a great mech, sure, but I'm talking about a real giant robot, like Mobile Suit Gundam sized. Why stop there? Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann sized. Okay, well, Gurren Lagann might be a little bit too big, but what about, say, Emeth size as a compromise? Because honestly, I think that this lab is where Emeth might have been built in the first place. I mean, look at Emeth's horns. Look at the weird Viking loincloth thing that he's wearing. The fact that Colin has a literal toy version of him for some reason. Putting all of these very subtle clues together, this dude is giving a lot of Elbaf energy. And really, think about it for a second. What's Emeth actually made of? Metal. And what else is metal? Vikings. Boom. Right there. Well, maybe if Franky and Vega find some old blueprints in that laboratory, he'll be able to build a giant mech of his own, whether that's one that he gets inside to pilot, or one that's controlled remotely, or even one that's maybe autonomous, kind of like Emeth. Or, I mean, the craziest option, which I don't see happening, is like Franky straight up like rebuilding his own body into a giant version of himself. I don't think they do that for merchandise reasons, but would be kind of rad as well. Now, we already know that Emeth seems to be activated and turned on by the Drums of Liberation. Not turned on in that way, no, you know what I mean. So, if they're able to study Luffy's fruit a little bit longer and a little bit more, again, Vegapunks are right there, they might be able to figure out how to use it as an actual power source as well. Also, just quickly, can we still talk about how Luffy doesn't know he has his own fruit yet, and how that is kind of blowing my mind because it's so much wasted potential because Luffy just doesn't know how to even properly use his fruit? Different story, just wanted to remind you in case you forgot. Then there's also the fact that Franky has of course seen and was in possession of the Bluton blueprints for a long time. And while the first original Pluton is still sleeping underneath Wano, let's face the facts. Right now, we're on Elbaf, the world's premier source of the legendary Atom Wood, you know, since it's on the Atom Tree itself. And if Loki does end up traveling with the Straw Hats, well, they're probably gonna need a bigger boat.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'd hate to see the Sunny go, but maybe they could just expand it a little bit. Expanded a lot with a few Plutony upgrades. Now, if you've been around for a couple of years, you probably know there's been a lot of speculation that Franky might have already actually just incorporated secret aspects of Pluton either into himself or into the Thousand Sunny that he hasn't revealed yet. And honestly, with characters talking about how Pluton is sleeping under Wano, you know, Sukiyaki specifically, I'm not entirely unconvinced that Pluton is actually alive. Not just a ship, but maybe some sort of cybernetic creature like a whale or something, which I, by the way, did a whole video about once upon a time. Actually, I will never give up on Whale Piece. And I could actually even see Franky just redesigning the ship so that he can combine with it and pilot it due to his own cyborg body, because in one of the SBS segments, Oda actually drew older versions of the Straw Hats in a good and a bad timeline. You probably know about these. And in Franky's bad timeline, he literally turned himself into a Battle Franky ship. So Oda clearly thought about it, and I do think it would be pretty sick if we could actually just get the best of both worlds here. The Thousand Sunny does currently run on Cola, so imagine a new super heavy nuclear cola powered ship that can also transform into a giant freaking robot. The stars in Luffy's eyes, and in mine by the way for that matter too, would never ever stop shining. And speaking of Luffy, I can't of course let Franky have all the fun here either, because if Oda's out here passing out upgrades mid-battle to Franky of all people, someone who hasn't even been in the battle with everyone until like right now, then I'm willing to bet that Luffy, our main character, will also tap into more of that Nika power at this point as well. Now, of course, all the hype recently has been on Loki and his crazy devil fruit reveal, but this is the real sun god that we're talking about. And honestly, I kind of think it's about time that Luffy could finally get some weapons. Yeah, I know. I remember when he tried his best to use a sword in Wano, very effectively by the way, just grab it and punch people, but I can't get it out of my head for some reason that in like every single depiction and panel we ever see of Nika or Joy Boy, the OG sun gods got a sword or a spear or a shield. It kind of seems to me like this is a very important part of every single Nika/Joy Boy depiction that has ever been shown. So does that mean that Luffy will also wield these weapons/shield at some point in the story instead of just throwing hands? I mean, if Imo can conjure up a literal cool shotgun from nothing, then Luffy's gonna need that shield at the very least. Like, just for the aesthetic, since he's canonically bullet resistant, though I don't know about like abyss-infused bullets, who knows. But as soon as Luffy went Gear 5, he suddenly got into the habit of throwing down lightning bolts as spears, pretty much Zeus style. Now, all he really needs at this point is the real deal, a real spear. What a weird sentence. I guess what I'm asking here is, are the actual sword and shield that the original Nika or Joy Boy used actually hidden somewhere for Luffy to find? 2 Pokemon? No? Alright. Well, honestly, could the massive sword in Elbaf that has kind of like, you know, not been a factor until now, could that have been Nika's sword? I mean, we've already seen Luffy make himself very big, so what's to stop him from going even bigger? I can actually kind of picture it now. A Nidhogg-sized Luffy yoinking that sword out of the Atom Tree and giving Imu the time of his life. Also, what a great tool to crush the Red Line. The Holy Knights won't even need an Abyss Circle this way to get back to Marijua, because Luffy's then just gonna be able to yeet them over there with his cool new sword, like aka catapult basically, right? But those weapons aren't of course the only upgrades that we can imagine for our captain here in Elbaf. Now personally, I kind of doubt that Luffy's gonna get an upgrade from Vegapunk directly, as much as he loves looking at shiny robots and lasers and stuff like that. They've never really been his style, but given that he's on an island that worships the sun god Nika, and Vegapunk's devil fruit research has given him some insight about the Nika fruit, Luffy might actually sit still long enough, maybe, to actually learn a little bit more about what his powers are actually capable of and what he actually is. Please, someone tell Luffy that he's a zone fruit and that he might have different zone forms and abilities to tap into. Please. He still thinks it's a paramecia rubber fruit that for some reason can, you know, change reality, I guess. Like, don't get me wrong, do I love the bit of Luffy straight up not caring or realizing that he has the power of a god? I do. It's in character for Luffy for sure, but again, the potential of what he could actually achieve if he knew about it is just like, I don't know, like just even knew the real name of his devil fruit even, right? Then I could finally see Luffy expanding on his Gear 5 powers beyond just imagining more wacky attacks to bust out in battles like his Gomu Gomu sniper scope against Summers, right? And I think one option would be inspired by Bonnie's Nika attack at the end of Egghead Island. In case you forgot about that for a second, Bonnie was able to also have a Nika transformation due to her own devil fruit letting her take on qualities from imagined futures, but I kind of think that there's a possibility that Luffy himself could bestow some of his godly powers on his other allies. Like, think of it almost like the opposite of what Imu's doing, right? A reversey. Instead of turning people into bloodthirsty demons, he could turn them into more white-clad Chad warriors, defending them from Imu's control, a little bit Naruto style when Naruto is sharing the Nine-Tailed chakra with people during the final war, even though I know that's not the best parallel to draw here, but just to visualize what I mean. Like a very cool technique that could come in super handy if Imu controlled someone like Loki, for example. And on top of that, it could just straight up give the rest of the Straw Hats some Nika-inspired forms of their own, giving everyone a big power-up all at once. But to be fair, I think there's also plenty of other crew members that Vegapunk could actually more directly give some power-ups to as well. Crewmates like Sanji. I mean, Sanji kinda hates his Germa body because he hates his evil dad, an evil dad who once was co-workers with Dr. Vegapunk as part of the Mats group. He even hates it so much that he got rid of his cool raid suit that gave him invisibility that he wanted his entire life basically, and just decided to do it himself by going real fast instead. But then again, since Vegapunk is provenly the better scientist between him and Judge, could Vegapunk actually give some upgrades to Sanji's Germa body in order to give him full access to the, very clearly enhanced powers without the risk of erasing his emotions or becoming anything like his brothers? I mean, you know that during Wano, Sanji was so terrified of that happening that he literally made Zoro promise in secret to get rid of him if the bad parts of the Germa genes ever took over. So if Vegapunk could potentially eliminate that risk and Sanji could let down his, mental block around his genetic enhancements, Sanji might finally be able to reach his full potential too. And I'm pretty sure that if it's Lilith version doing the adjustments, Sanji's gonna let Vegapunk do whatever experiments on him that they could possibly want to do. I know that I would. Now, Sanji's already, of course, unlocked red and blue flames through his own abilities, but what if the Diablo Jinbe got that stealth black treatment too? Yeah, we're talking Black Flame Sanji. As you probably know, I'm a man of a simple taste, and if I saw him bust out some sick black flames, I would go, ooh, and just clap my hands and jump up and down like this. Woo, right? And then, okay, next up, Nami, the Straw Hat besides Franky that I can absolutely also see getting an upgrade directly from the Vega Lab. May I remind you that currently all the other surviving Vegapunks are up in Witheria in this weird chimera blob form that absolutely haunts my nightmares. God. Some real body horror stuff there, Oda. Like, ew, no need to go like full Made in Abyss or something. Ew, don't need that in One Piece. Now, some real, basically Frankenstein's monster action that we have going on here. They're hanging out with Herodus, Mr. Wizard, who actually was the person who helped Nami get her original time skip upgrades anyways. But now, Lilith Punk is right here with us and could absolutely enhance the climate act by probably like a factor of 1,000 if she really wanted to, let's be real. Zeus, who actually appeared in this chapter, gave Nami already a pretty decent power-up after Wano, but after seeing Zeus getting bodied by one of those dream demons, it's also kind of clear that this homie also needs a little bit of a power boost. Right now, Zeus is kind of just living inside the climate tag, but the weapon hasn't been exactly designed by Usopp with Zeus powers in mind at all. So imagine if Vegapunk, the person who created stuff like the Seraphim, can actually fine-tune this device to work with Zeus more effectively and maybe some other shenanigans. Nami could become so much stronger. I'm kind of wondering if Oda might go into the direction of the Vajra, which are these like crazy thunder staff devices that, you know, originally come from Hindu mythology and then made it into other mythologies like the Greek one. Basically, Zeus's thunderbolt thing is actually inspired by, you know, the Hindu Vajra thing. Pretty cool, kind of like a crazy piece of technology, or, well, I guess mythology, but I think, yeah, there's like some crazy shenanigans out there that it might have been real technology, kind of, you know, One Piece style. So I think that could be what Oda is actually taking the inspiration from. And then, of course, during the time skip, Herodes also showed Nami the wind knots, and more recently, we've already seen that same effect applied to Haki with Joy Boy's Haki knot that was then hidden and stored inside Emmett. So maybe if Vegapunk can show Luffy or Zoro how to imbue their own Haki, Conqueror's Haki, into a knot like that, which would already be so cool. I kind of want Luffy to start weaving Haki, but then Nami and some of the other Straw Hats that are a little bit on the weaker side, and as far as I can tell, still have no, I guess they know about Haki, but they can't use it. Well, they could just hold on to these just in case of emergency, kind of like Emmett did. Pull in case of emergency. Crazy Luffy Conqueror Blast from Nami goes pretty hard. And speaking of it, if there is one Straw Hat on the weaker side that really needs an upgrade on Elbaf, it's of course Jinbe. No, I'm kidding. It's Usopp. Of course, it's Usopp. Can you tell I really want Usopp to get a power-up on Elbaf at this point? Did I mention it in this video already? Did I make a whole video about it just a few weeks ago and many times before Elbaf too? Ooh, Usopp's great power-up that's coming in Elbaf. I think I made that video like 2 or 3 times. Yeah, so you know we're gonna talk about it again. You bet I am, because I'm gonna do it until it happens or until I get very salty that it didn't. And I know you heard this before, but I need to ramble it again. Usopp has wanted to come here to Elbaf for so long in the story. He loves Elbaf. He loves the Giants. We're gonna see it again in the live action right now. Give him something cool to do and a little character arc, Oda, please. Like, I don't know, perhaps a giant hammer? A giant hammer that transforms into a very cute but very powerful giant squirrel? Now, I don't think that the faithful Ragnar is probably gonna leave Loki's side permanently, but I do think that at some point in this climactic battle, Usopp hopefully, please, will get to wield Ragnar in hammer form, probably maybe as just a comedic God Usopp style moment, but I could also see Usopp unlocking another level of advanced observation Haki, since Luffy and Zoro are probably already on their way to get some crazy Conqueror's training upgrade thing to deal with the Holy Knight's regeneration anyways, so why not finally throw in some other Haki stuff for the other Straw Hats too? We want training arcs. We want just a Haki, like, I need Chopper, not with Conqueror's Haki, but like something. Please, also, right? And of course, Usopp. And really, if nothing else, Vegapunk also could absolutely help Usopp upgrade his weapons while they're here too. I mean, maybe Lilith can improve on the Kabuto's design to make a slingshot that can fire even further and more accurately than ever before, kind of even surpassing, you know, some of the most powerful guns. They could engineer some new pop greens or even completely new ammunition with new effects, or, you know, just do stuff that is perfect for the new world. Some crazy high explosion potential munition. Vegapunk is the person who figured out a ton of uses for Sea Stone for the world government, so maybe Usopp will finally get the Sea Stone weapons and munition that the fandom has been begging for so many years, whether that's a Sea Stone projectile or even a net to trap some Logia fruit users or help out Luffy by sniping a very powerful opponents from miles and miles away. What a great way to unite Usopp's cowardice with a really powerful attack and his crazy good skill as a sniper. And even if I'm dying on that hill, I think still that this is gonna happen. Though I will say I'm a little bit less sure about Robin, best girl. I'm not quite sure that she needs any Vegapunk tech to get stronger, but God, does she need a real power-up. But if the Straw Hats do get to have a little bit of a training montage after Elbaf, which would be cool, little time skip, right? While maybe Vegapunk is outfitting everyone with new weapons, I do think that Robin could get a lot out of it too. If Scopper, for example, actually ends up training the Monster Trio in using their Conqueror's Haki better, can someone please teach Robin how to use Haki already? I mean, like, one of Robin's biggest weaknesses, despite having a pretty busted Devil Fruit, is that the limbs that she sprouts are also very susceptible to damage. Also, can we talk about how all of the Straw Hats' Devil Fruits are kind of not doing what they're supposed to be doing? Like, most Devil Fruits pretty straightforward, right? Become a cow, use fire, use ice, right? Luffy, rubber, like, turns out to be a god. Chopper's supposed to be a human, but his fruit doesn't behave like most other zone fruits, and his regular zone fruit is not a person really, but like this fur monster thing. Robin's supposed to have the flower fruit, but that's like super vaguely defined, and she just makes clones of herself and crazy shenanigans. And then Brook, whose devil fruit is supposedly only reviving him once, has some crazy underworld ice powers and can leave his body and stuff like that. None of these devil fruits are doing what they're supposed to be doing and seem like they might be something else, and that goes for Robin fruits as well. Just saying. But yeah, going back to my point, her limbs are very susceptible to damage, but if she can sprout a bunch of, I don't know, armament Haki-coated fists, for example, that's gonna be a huge power boost right there. And if she keeps working on her cloning, teleportation, and just enhances her Demonia Fleur transformation some more, she could really be a true force to be reckoned with. But you know who already is a force to be reckoned with? That's right, Kaido. The Patreons, who make this entire channel possible. Are you sick of waiting until Sunday to get my thoughts on a One Piece chapter? Over on Patreon, you can get my first initial thoughts and reactions, talk about the chapter for a while with my team as I work out putting everything together into a full video here, also some crazy artwork. It also, all that money goes back into making better videos for you, into the art team, into my, editors who, thank you editors for making this beautiful video, just supporting what we do here, basically getting more out of it for you, and also showing, us that you want more One Piece content. But yeah, just a little plug. Back to the video. It just kind of bugs me that half the crew at this point was trapped by Summer's thorns and were helpless until Sanji casually came through and dealt with it fairly easily, and Zoro, right? I kind of get that they say that the thorns are weak to heat, but that didn't stop Zoro from easily blocking Summer's attacks. Because, I mean, come on, if we're actually starting to be in the final saga here, whatever that means, I honestly, like, everyone says we're in the final saga, but are we? I don't know, maybe we are. Like, we're definitely moving towards the ending, and this is supposed to be the Pirate King's crew, but it can't just be Zoro and Luffy and Sanji and maybe Jinbe ? We gotta give all these guys at least some basic Haki. I understand that Nami or Usopp are being trapped here, but I kind of feel like at least Jinbe, my boy, should have been able to bust out of here. Dude, you were a warlord for, like, brother, you bend sea currents to your will. And, alright, speaking of Jinbe, does he need an upgrade? I mean, the man, again, is a former Shichibukai since he joined the crew. He hasn't really struggled that much, I think. I mean, he absolutely wrecked Who's Who on Wano, who was probably the Tobiropo closest to actually becoming an all-star in Kaido's crew. But I'm not really satisfied seeing Jinbe mess up one racist. I kind of want to see him mess up at least 5 more racists. He shouldn't need Sanji to come in and kick Killingham's helmet apart for saying something super dumb and racist. I want Jinbe to land a serious hit on this self-hating clown himself. But Jinbe is kind of already powerful, and it's like we don't really know what he's truly capable of because we've never seen him in a fight that like really wrecked him, basically. I mean, if anything, there's one option I like to at least entertain for Jinbe in this video. If he would need a real boost, what about tapping into his Fishman heritage by using a national treasure of Fishman Island? You remember the national treasure? It's those energy steroids. There are some problems with this off the bat, of course, but hear me out. First, I don't think that Jinbe would ever stoop to Hody Jones's level and actually try and use these, willingly. Secondly, they have a very terrible side effect that instantly age you up quite a lot. And third, with the Tamate Bako box gone and exploded, where would he even get more of these is the question. Well, I do think there is a possibility to answer at least a few of these problems actually right away. First off, I think Chopper could actually probably recreate these. He's smart enough. We have Vegapunk here. They can help. He was able to update the Rumble Ball so that Beppo could eat one and trigger a Sulong transformation. Remember that? That was actually kind of crazy. And those Sulong transformation do share a lot in common with the energy steroid transformations. Red eyes, white hair, enhanced power, looking a lot just like Gear 5 overall. So if Franky is already finding a way to harness Luffy's Nika powers, I think that there is a world where Chopper can put that into pill form somehow. And in fact, it doesn't even need to be limited to Jinbe. I mean, this could just be how Luffy's allies get some Nika transformations too, instead of him just magically transforming them himself. In fact, I've kind of been wondering if the national treasure of Fishman Island, the energy steroids, whether they could be a similar thing to the Haki knot that was stored inside Emmet by Joy Boy, where Joy Boy took some of his power, turned it into a pill, and was like, gave it to the fishmen. You know, after he made the apology letter, he was like, sorry I couldn't help you guys, I lost, here's my power in pill form, use it wisely, it'll like come at a cost, but you can at least defend yourself when you have to. I wonder if that's the case and why it's actually Fishman Island's national treasure, despite that not really coming across well, I guess, with the Hody Jones plot. And I think if we combine the facts that Hody Jones was basically just corrupting what was supposed to be a sacred, holy, memorial of Joy Boy on Fishman Island, and then combine the same idea with Jinbe being empowered by his allies, I can see him using this as a possibility, but only if he finds himself in like a really, really dark and desperate situation. I'm not sure if you agree. To me, he's always come across as the type of person who likes to really rely on his own strength. And again, he's pretty good. He is somewhere up there in the top 4. Jinbe is very strong, man. Just apparently not strong enough to break out of these vines for some reason, apparently. And even if Jinbe isn't using Rumble Balls, Chopper can definitely keep improving them for at least his personal use. As Chopper is just the certified baller of the Straw Hats. He's rumbling his balls all the time. They're even apparently releasing plushies these months where it's like a collaboration between Chopper and like some basketball teams in the US. I saw that in like the Chopper Cafe we went to. Pretty fun. Yeah, if Caesar's help was already enough to extend his monster point up to half an hour, but with the Baby Geezer side effect, again, very Gear 5 Sulong vibes here, then surely Vegapunk, the real deal, can improve them way more with, the Giza part making him talk like an old man after his transformation. Again, it's the same as the energy steroids too, so legitimately wondering, is Chopper onto a breakthrough here with this? Is he tapping into like just making his own steroids with the Rumble Balls? If the Rumble Balls help Beppo go Sulong without the full moon, can Chopper go Sulong even without being a full-on mink somehow? Or since his monster point seems to be a form of awakening, probably, or is it not? Again, Chopper's fruit also all types of weird. We talked about him potentially being the forest god, but could he improve that awakening or force an awakening if monster point isn't his awakening? It kind of seems like his awakening looks a lot closer to what the Jailer Beasts ended up being, who lost their minds and got taken over, right? Like, Chopper kind of lost his mind when he first went Monster Point in Enies Lobby, but he still doesn't have that smoky Hagoromo sash like the other true Zone Devil Fruit Awakenings, like Luffy and Lucci and Kaido and Yamato, right? The sash that's like, yeah, legit awakened Zone Fruit, and it comes in white for the good guys, and it comes in a cool black for the bad guys. What I'm saying is there a way that Chopper can truly sync up with his human side to access a more powerful version of his awakening, one that's accomplished through his own will rather than forcing it with a Rumble Ball? Because basically, the entire Rumble Ball thing is like, it's two things. On the one hand, like a positive thing, it kind of unlocks new powers and forms that regular Zone Fruits wouldn't give you access to, but it also has always kind of been like a cheat code for Chopper to awaken his fruit without actually having to put in the work, if that makes sense. Now, I kind of wonder, again, random thought that just popped into my head, because Chopper has a human fruit, whether it's just a regular human fruit or whether it's actually a special model, like a mythical model or something like that, which again, I could see, human fruit model, forest god or something like that. But whatever his human form or his human fruit actually is, it kind of makes you wonder if because Chopper sees himself still as a monster, as like a kind of like beast creature thing that people don't accept, that's his entire backstory and trauma, I wonder if him actually seeing himself as a full human being and a full-fledged member of Luffy's crew, that would actually allow him to align his will with his devil fruit and awaken it that way. That could be kind of cool. Or, you know, just give Chopper some hockey. That would also be a pretty good power-up again. But if the chapters leading up to this one hinted at a power-up for any Straw Hat, honestly, I never would have picked Franky. It really came out of nowhere, really. I honestly instead would have probably gone with Brook, since Brook is now face-to-face right now with Gunk Imu. Yeah, that's still happening, even though we haven't seen them for 2 chapters, whose body he remembers as Princess Shuri, so it seems like Brook's on the cusp of a second flashback, or dying a second time. Either way, he better bust out something. And what goes better with a flashback than a really cool power-up afterwards? That's like Shonen 101, dude. He'll probably yell a lot, and his fro will turn yellow too, and there's some lightning coming out of him. This is another one that I don't think Vegapunk is gonna accomplish through any crazy tech here. Once again, as a Straw Hat, Brook has a lot to learn about his own devil fruit, which doesn't seem to be doing what it's supposed to be doing, which is revive you once and then that's it. I mean, again, it took him all the way up until the time skip, like 50 years before Brook even realized that his fruit actually did a lot more than just revive him once. Like, even more than a proper power-up, I just kind of need Oda to give Brook an actual fight where he can fully show off what he's capable of, kind of what we got with his standoff with Big Mom, which again, was one of my favorite moments post-time skip anyways. Brook going crazy and knocking out all those homies was so freaking cool. So can we please just see Brook in a like mid-diff fight once in our lives? He's either dog walking absolute fodder or getting off-screen by the literal strongest characters in the entire universe. Like, Brook is either side character hunting or facing off against Big Mom and Emu. Pretty crazy, actually. Though I will say right now with Emu, he might be up against the perfect opponent to show him what's truly possible when it comes to his real soul powers, because Emu does seem to split their own soul amongst the different Holy Knights and Gorosei members in order to form the most powerful 13 covenants. Also, little side ramble, I have, you know, accepted that we as a community are naming these covenants. I don't know who came up with that translation. In Japanese, they're just called contracts. Maybe someone thought covenant would sound cooler. They're just devil contracts. But, you know, I'll use covenants. It kind of has a cool ring to it. But, you know, like, just so you know, it's not that fancy in Japanese. And to me, I've always kind of had the feeling that Emu might also be using a version of some sort of soul manipulation, like some, you know, crazy, I don't know, Voldemort, like, Horcrux shenanigans, but a very different version than we've seen Brook use against, for example, Big Mom's homies. And Brook also pulls power from the underworld, you know, with his ice attacks, which again, another thing that's so weird and still unexplained, and apparently, you know, like Jupiter does it as well. It's what's going on with the Straw Hats. Also, Emu seems to be drawing power from the abyss using twisted powers like Domi Reversi, teleportation, mind control, and, you know, summoning blunderbusses, basically. Since Brook is currently clashing against Emu out of all people, the king of the world, which again, saying it, I don't know, maybe it hasn't really, you know, fully settled in my head until this moment that this is happening, but kind of crazy. But of course, I wouldn't expect Brook to win here, even remotely, not even close. I mean, there's gonna be another Big Mom situation where we think Brook is pretty hardcore just for holding his own for a little bit, which, don't get me wrong, if he can even positively surprise Emu by putting up somewhat of a fight, that's already a massive feat for one character who suddenly is in the face with the most powerful and evil being that's ruling the entire One Piece world. So, go Brook. But again, in the best case scenario, Brook might actually see a full glimpse of what's possible with soul and underworld powers with whatever Emu uses to beat him or attack him. And if Brook figures out how to use those abilities of his own maybe, or a version of it, dude, he could end up being a perfect hard counter to some of those crazy abyss powers. I can absolutely envision Brook using his music to free people like Gunko from Imu's mind control, or pulling people out of Domi Reversi straight up without resorting to, decapitation. I also want to say, just to address it, I'm not the biggest fan that Domi Reversi can be countered just like that in this chapter. I think Oda just went and was like, ooh, the vines, they can't be cut by anything, but now they can be cut. And Domi Reversi, crazy thing that can't be undone, but it can be undone. And immortality and regeneration can't be undone, it can be. That's kind of happened a lot recently, which, to be fair, it still seems to be somewhat hard to do, but I kind of was hoping it was a little bit more of a, crap, we can't do anything about this until we get some crazy upgrades. Still hope that's kind of going to be the case, but yeah, just in case you were wondering what my thoughts were on that entire part of the chapter. Moving on though, I don't want to leave out some of my honorary, kind of, sort of, definitely official Straw Hats either. Yamato, for instance, has received an official good timeline, bad timeline drawing in an SBS. I got the new manga, by the way. Ta-da! New manga. It's volume 114. And where is Yamato? Dude, rereading God Valley, not on a week-to-week basis, but in a whole, just in one setting, so good. Aha! Sorry, I've been, looking for this for, 5 minutes, but we cut to it right away, so you didn't have to suffer through it. Anyways, I found it. Where is it? Right here. So we got, the very cool, good timeline, bad timeline, basically, for Yamato. And the fact that up until now, pretty much only Straw Hats have been getting this treatment, it kind of confirms to me that she's a Straw Hat. And also, does Yamato really need a power-up if she rejoins the crew, hopefully after Elbaf? Because Yamato is already easily in the top 5 of the crew, if not, honestly, top 2. So let's, even more Conqueror's Haki to her and a Devil Fruit Awakening. But I guess the Okochi no Makami Fruit is already awakened because the good guy Hagoromo, the white one, is there. I don't know. By the end of the series, let's get them all the way up to Kaido tier. I feel like, having Yamato on Kaido level would be pretty cool. Now, Vivi, on the other hand, does absolutely need a power-up last time we checked. She's been getting a lot more focus lately with the Cobra assassination and sneaking messages into the newspaper, so it really feels like it's only a matter of time before, another pretty much official but kind of not Straw Hat reunites with the crew, especially now with all the Lily stuff that, we're learning about. It's gonna happen. If Kuma ends up dying, by the way, I could really see a long-time fan theory of Vivi getting the Pawpaw Fruit finally come true, especially if the Pawpaw Fruit was how her ancestor Lily might have spread the poneglyphs around the world. By the way, in case you don't know what theory I'm talking about, just, not super important, but just very quickly so you have the idea, Oda loves Japanese wordplay, so turning numbers into letters and words and the other way around. So basically, all the, Straw Hats Devil Fruits correspond to numbers between 1 and 10. So Hito Hito for Chopper is 1 and 10. Then Luffy's original Gomu Gomu is 5 and 6. Then we have Hana Hana, so the flower fruit for Robin, which is 7 and 8. And then we had the Yomi Yomi fruit, which is 4 and 3. So basically it was 2 and 9 that are still missing from 1 to 10. And that would be Nikyu Nikyu, which turns out to be exactly the name of the Pawpaw Fruit. Which again, kind of up for grabs it seems now. Anyways, I kind of want to focus on a different option than just the Pawpaw Fruit for Vivi today, because lately we've been speculating that Lily actually founded the country of Amazon Lily, probably something you've heard before, a place that is all about snakes. They've got pet snakes, they've got boat snakes, they've got mountain snakes, well, they're mountain is snakes, and in Elbaf we've begun learning a lot about the Hell Flame Serpent. I kind of think there may be some connection between that serpent in the first world and Amazon Lily worshipping snakes, after the second world, and also Alabasta having snakes, and her dad name being named Cobra, and there being a giant serpent that looks like the Hellflame Serpent in the catacomb, mural that we get when Cobra is down there with Crocodile. So if Lily did base Amazon Lily's snake worship on the Hellflame Serpent in particular, then could Vivi get some kind of Hellflame powers later on? A serpent zone we've just talked about in the last chapter review, how potentially, Luffy, Loki, and someone else might be, the 3 titans, the 3 giant creatures from the mural, this here, Nika, the giant demon thing, the dragon, the Nidhogg, and then the Hellflame Serpent. Why not Lily? Either way, it would be a much needed and very cool power boost for the Princess of Alabasta, but that kind of feels like it might be almost a theory worthy of its own video though, so Amazon Lily, Nefertari Lily video incoming? Anyways, and of course, Zoro's on a journey to now unlock Conqueror's Haki right now. That seems like the most obvious one, and that seems like one that will happen because it's basically been said to him by Scopper Gaban. But I guess I should probably say learn to control his Conqueror's Haki, because at least according to Scopper, my man, it's just oozing out of him at all times. It's kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze with this guy, which, fun fact, I've actually watched for the first time since I recently played the pre-release for the Magic the Gathering Ninja Turtles set, which is a thing, so I know a lot more about Ninja Turtles now. But yeah, Zoro basically had no idea that he even had this power, and while Vegapunk is making new toys for everyone, hopefully, I kind of need Scopper giving, you know, Zoro a training montage so that the characters who really should have advanced Conqueror's Haki can use and control their Haki going into the final war ahead. But that of course doesn't mean that Zoro can't get another new and improved toy himself too, because he's got a really slick connections of swords at the moment, yes, but none of them scream world's greatest swordsman yet, because the current world's greatest swordsman has a very particular kind of blade, a black one. And I'm not saying that size matters, but, you know, Yoru, definitely a lot cooler than anything that Zoro has going on. And honestly, until Zoro figures out how to make a black blade himself, I don't think he's gonna be ready to take on Mihawk again, but I do think that the Elbaf arc might have actually just shown us how black blades are actually made, and the one to do it was Ragnir. Out of all people, I mean squirrels, I actually think that Ragnir is a black blade. Well, I guess a black hammer. You kind of get the idea. Ragnir turned into the weapon it is now when Ratatoskr put his own soul and will into that weapon. And I do think that it might be Kuina's soul that's going to get Zoro turning the Wado Ichimonji into a black blade. How, you ask? Well, I'm explaining all of that in this video right here, where I talk about the new concept of soul manipulation and soul infusion that Oda has just introduced in the story. So feel free to check that out. Otherwise, shanks for watching. I almost said thanks for watching, but shanks for watching. Shanks to my fantastic Patreons. Again, check that out if you want to. And I will see you in the next video on... Oh boy, we're in live action territory. All right, there's gonna be a lot of... First, you're gonna see live action stuff next week. All right.